Hello, and welcome to Science for Sleep. This is your time to rest, to drift, and let the noise of the day melt gently into quiet wonder. Here, we explore the deepest questions of the universe. Softly, slowly, one thought at a time. Tonight, we begin a peaceful journey through the life of one remarkable mind. A man who saw time not as a ticking clock, but as something fluid, stretching, bending, beautiful. His name was Albert Einstein. More than a scientist, he was a dreamer, a thinker, a quiet rebel of thought. In this softly told story, we won't rush. We'll float gently through the chapters of his life. From his childhood questions to his cosmic answers. From the stillness of silence to the curve of space-time itself. So close your eyes, feel your breath, and join me now as we step into the quiet genius of Albert Einstein. Let's begin with Chapter 1, A Gentle Mind in a Noisy World. The world around you is always moving. Fast, frantic, noisy. There are clocks ticking, cars passing. People rushing toward places they haven't yet seen. In the middle of it all, your mind longs for something slower, something softer, a place where thought doesn't sprint, it drifts. And tonight, as you settle into stillness, you meet someone who understood that pace. His name is Albert Einstein, not the wild-haired genius from your school book. Not the tongue-out photo on mugs and magnets, but the quiet boy who didn't quite fit in, the one who watched, and wondered, and waited. He wasn't quick to speak. He didn't shine in a classroom. Teachers thought he was slow, but what they didn't see was that his mind was somewhere else entirely. Not lost, just listening to something quieter than the world allowed. You imagine him now. A young boy in a German town, lying on his back, watching sunlight ripple on the ceiling, trying to understand how light moves at all. He didn't speak full sentences until he was nearly 4, but in the silence of those early years, his thoughts gathered like stardust, tiny, quiet particles that would someday become constellations of insight. He was enchanted by simple things. A compass needle quivering in its glass case, always pointing north, as if something invisible was tugging it. How could it know where to go? That invisible tug would become gravity, and magnetism, and fields he'd someday describe with equations. But back then, it was just a mystery, a beautiful one. He didn't need noise to learn. He needed wonder, and wonder comes quietly. You may know Einstein now as the man of equations, but he was first a man of imagination. He would close his eyes and ask, what would it feel like to ride on a beam of light? What would time do if I moved faster than anything ever had? What does the universe look like from the outside? These weren't questions with easy answers. And they weren't always welcome. In a world that valued speed and precision, Einstein brought patience and play. You walk alongside him now, in your mind, as he strolls down quiet roads in Switzerland. He is thinking, always thinking, but not in circles, in spirals, reaching deeper with each round. He works in a patent office, not in a lab. Not in a university, just a small, shared desk, where he reads inventions other people have dreamed up. But while he reviews gears and motors, his mind floats far beyond the pages. He is thinking of time, of clocks ticking in different places, of trains moving past platforms, of what happens when you stop seeing time as absolute and start seeing it as elastic. And in that quiet, between one patent and the next, he begins to reshape how we see the universe. But before the theories, before the Nobel Prize, before the fame that would chase him into every corner of the world. There was just this, a gentle mind in a noisy world, choosing to wonder. You carry that same possibility right now, in the hush of your room, with your thoughts slowing down. You can feel it, that same soft pull toward something bigger, but quieter. Einstein's gift was not speed, not perfect memory, not obedience. It was curiosity without hurry, imagination without fear, and a devotion to mystery. Even when no one else believed in the questions, you drift through the early chapters of his life, noticing how he never rushed, how he never chased success, how, instead, he followed fascination, even if it led him far from approval. He wasn't trying to impress the world. He was trying to understand it. He once said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." And maybe that's the soft secret. That genius is not a loud achievement, but a quiet invitation to keep asking. And so, as the noise of the world fades from your thoughts tonight, you settle into that same spirit, open, gentle, wondering, what would it feel like if time itself was not what you thought it was? That's where we go next, into the nature of time, as seen through the soft eyes of a man who never stopped questioning the clock. Chapter 2, The Boy Who Watched Light. You are small, and the world feels large. It moves around you with a rhythm you don't yet understand. Clocks ticking, trains rushing past, grown-ups speaking in straight lines. But your thoughts, they move differently, not in straight lines at all. They curl and bend like smoke in sunlight. You are Albert, a quiet boy in a quiet house in Germany, sitting alone in the glow of late afternoon. The air is still. The dust in the room floats like tiny stars, caught in the stream of a sunbeam spilling through the window. You watch that light, not with the eyes of someone who takes it for granted. You watch as if it's alive, something flowing, something moving, something meaningful. And then, quietly, a question stirs in you. What if I could catch that beam? What if I could ride it? Not just see it or touch it, but chase it. Hold on to it like a thread and follow it to wherever it leads. What would the world look like if you were riding next to light? The question doesn't feel like school. It doesn't have a test or a page number. It feels like play, like dreaming while you're awake. And in this moment, sitting with your young body still and your mind wide open, something begins. Something gentle, something quiet, but something enormous. You don't yet have the words relativity or physics or light speed, but already you sense that the world is stranger than it appears. You don't know the answers. You don't even need them. The question itself is enough. Years pass, but the light stays with you. You are still a boy, but older now, a little taller, a little more curious. You carry notebooks, pencils, ideas. But inside, you're still the same boy watching the beam. Sometimes you get lost in your own thoughts, drifting off in the middle of a sentence. You're not ignoring people. It's just that your mind wanders into places words can't quite reach. You start to wonder about time, not the way others do, with minutes and schedules. You wonder if time moves the same for everyone. Does it tick the same on a mountain as it does in a valley? Does a moving clock run differently from a still one? And again, you return to the light. If you were riding beside it, not walking or biking, but moving with it, would time change? Would the world slow down? Would the face of a clock melt into stillness? These are not school questions. They are dream questions. But you begin to sense they may also be the most real. At night, you lie awake under your blankets, the room cool and dim. You listen to the hum of the world outside, a horse cart in the distance, the wind against the shutters, your own breath rising and falling like the sea. In your mind, light still moves. You imagine it dancing across space, never slowing, never aging. You imagine yourself beside it, feeling no time at all, like floating in a world where clocks have stopped. What is this thing, time? Why does it move forward, never backward? Why does it speed for one and slow for another? You don't yet have a lab. You don't yet have equations. But you have wonder. And wonder is its own kind of instrument. You begin to read more. You fill your room with books that smell like ink and old paper. While other boys chase games and noise, you chase silence. The quiet space between pages where thoughts grow wild. You read about magnetism and electricity, about forces and fields. But no one seems to ask what you're asking. No one is chasing the beam the way you are. Still, you hold the question close, like a soft ember in your chest. Years pass. You change schools, cities, countries. Sometimes you feel like you don't belong. Not because you're unkind, but because you're curious in a way the world isn't built for. But through it all, your mind keeps returning to the same glowing place. Light. What is it? A wave? A particle? A messenger from the stars? Is it constant? Always the same, no matter how fast you move? If light is the same for everyone, then everything else, motion, time, distance, must adjust around it. The thought is small, but it hums like music. You are no longer a child, but you are not yet the man history will know. You are somewhere in between, a bridge between dream and discovery. But the boy who watched light is still inside you. He never left. He simply grew more precise. The curiosity that once danced in your eyes now moves through formulas and thought experiments. The sunbeam you stared at from your childhood window has become a question you cannot let go of, not because it haunts you, but because it calls to you. And as you walk through your early life, working at a patent office, solving problems in the quiet between tasks, the beam is still there, waiting, asking, glowing. It's no longer just about watching it. Now, you are beginning to understand what it means to chase it. But first, there are more questions to hold, and more quiet places in your mind to visit. Because chasing light means rethinking everything, even the simplest ideas of space and time. And the boy who once sat in the golden light of afternoon will soon ask a question that changes how we see the universe forever. But before that moment arrives, you must step into another world, one where trains move and clocks tick, and everything seems just slightly out of sync. Next, you'll learn why time is not as steady as it seems, and how motion bends reality itself. Chapter 3: A World of Numbers and Notes. You are 8 years old again, but this time, you're in a quiet room in Munich. Sunlight resting gently on a polished wooden desk, and across from you sits a boy with a wild head of hair, and a faraway look in his eyes. He isn't solving math problems for school. He's not being told what to learn. He's discovering how to think, how to feel the rhythm of the universe, through both numbers and notes. This boy is Albert. You notice something strange about him, not in the way he speaks, but in the way he listens. He listens to silence like it's saying something important. He watches falling leaves as if they contain equations. He hears things you don't hear, sees patterns in things most people don't even notice. His mind is quiet, but not still. Inside, it hums, like a cello string gently vibrating. And today, it's the violin that's calling him. You follow him to the next room, where a small case lies open. He lifts the violin with care, as if it's made of thought itself. With each bow across the string, he's not just making music, he's asking a question. Each note is a curiosity. Each pause, a problem waiting to be understood. You sit beside him, the air filled with slow, simple melodies. Mozart mostly, but something in the way he plays feels different. He's not copying a sound, he's conversing with it, as if the music is whispering back ideas that haven't yet reached the surface. Albert doesn't yet know he'll become a scientist, but already the seeds are there. Music teaches him more than school ever could. That time can stretch and compress. That silence matters just as much as sound. That repetition builds meaning. And that beauty, real beauty, often hides in patterns. Numbers begin to feel like notes, too. Not dull assignments, but rhythms. He plays with them in his head, like puzzles whose answers aren't as important as the joy of trying. Multiplication tables bore him, but ask him how long light would take to bounce from a mirror on a moving train. Now you have his attention. In school, Albert often seems slow, not because he doesn't understand, but because he wants to understand differently. He doesn't memorize. He imagines. While others recite formulas, he closes his eyes and lets the idea unfold like a story. You watch him one day staring at a compass, its needle trembling, always pointing north. He's not amazed by the object itself. He's wondering why. What invisible force moves that needle so precisely? What unseen hand is guiding it? That tiny magnetic swing becomes a doorway, not to one answer, but to a lifetime of wonder. It's not the compass he keeps. It's the question. At night, when the house grows quiet, Albert returns to the strings. You listen from the doorway, as his bow glides gently across the violin. Sometimes the notes are soft and warm, other times fast and searching. And in those hours, when even the walls seem to lean in to listen, you understand something. For Albert, thinking is a kind of music, and music is a kind of thinking. One day, he hands you a sheet of paper. It's not homework. It's a sketch, not of art, but of numbers. Swirling symbols, arrows, strange markings. A child's version of logic. Yet somehow it looks alive. I'm not solving anything, he says softly. I'm just trying to see what it might say. You nod, though you're not sure what he means. Still, something about it feels like a secret worth keeping. Albert doesn't fit in at school. He asks too many questions, and not the ones in the textbook. His teachers think he's rebellious, but he's really just curious. You begin to realize that brilliance doesn't always speak loudly. Sometimes it hums quietly, finding its own rhythm, outside the walls of expectation. As years pass, Albert learns more from books he chooses himself than from any curriculum. He teaches himself algebra, then geometry, but more than anything, he learns how to sit with an idea until it opens like a flower. No rush, no noise, just patience and imagination. And through it all, the violin remains, his steady companion, a bridge between mind and soul. You sit beside him once more, watching as he plays a soft melody in a low key. He's older now, but his eyes are still filled with light. He pauses mid-phrase and says, "Sometimes I think in music. I live my daydreams in it. I see my life in terms of music." And you know he means it. In this quiet chapter of his youth, Albert isn't yet a physicist. He's a dreamer, a listener, a boy with more questions than answers. But those questions, shaped by notes and numbers, are slowly tuning the mind. That will one day bend the fabric of reality. You take one last look at the room, at the desk scattered with papers, the violin resting gently in its case, and the boy with stars in his thoughts. The world of theory hasn't arrived yet, but it's on its way, riding quietly, patiently, on waves of curiosity. And just beyond the next moment, Albert will begin to imagine what it means to ride light itself. Chapter 4. The Clerk Who Changed Time. You sit at a desk that doesn't belong to you, in a world that hasn't yet learned your name. Outside, trams rattle through the cobbled streets of Bern, their bells blending with birdsong and footsteps. It's the year 1905, and inside this small patent office, you, Albert Einstein, are quietly rethinking the universe. Not with telescopes, not with grand experiments, but with your mind, wandering freely through the folds of space and time, as if they were pages in a book. Your job is simple: review inventions, stamp approvals, keep order. Time moves predictably here. Clocks chime, papers shuffle, the mundane rhythm of a government job. And yet within you, something stirs, something vast. While others file patents, you ask questions that bend the edges of reality. You imagine lightning striking two ends of a moving train. If you stand on the platform, you see the flashes at the same time. But if you're on the train, rushing forward, one flash reaches your eyes before the other. So, is it really the same time for both observers? This is where the world begins to shift, because you realize time does not tick the same for everyone. In your mind, clocks stretch and shrink, distance folds, time bends depending on how fast someone moves. You call it special relativity, but to most, it sounds like poetry folded into math. You see it so clearly. Motion and time are not separate. They are bound together in a quiet, elegant dance. Space is no longer a stage. It's part of the performance. As you scribble on the back of government forms, the universe opens its palm to you, and gently, you take its hand. You imagine a person traveling near the speed of light. Their heartbeat slows. Their clock ticks differently than one left behind. Time, you see, is flexible, not absolute, not fixed, but shaped by movement, as soft and strange as a dream. This makes you smile, because now, even the simplest things, a clock, a train, a flash of light, hold within them the secret of reality's weave. And then you go further. Energy, you realize, is not just something things have, it's something they are. A small amount of mass holds a vast amount of energy. You write a quiet equation, E equals mc squared. You don't shout it. You don't publish it with grandeur. But that single line, delicate and simple, becomes the most famous equation in human history. It hums with a truth no one has seen before. That mass can become energy, and energy can become mass. As if matter itself were light caught in a different rhythm. You are not yet a professor, not yet famous. You are just a clerk, with a quiet voice, a patient heart, and the imagination of a universe. That year, 1905, is your annus mirabilis, your miracle year. In 12 short months, you publish 4 papers that each bend the bones of science. On light, on motion, on mass, on time. You propose that light comes in packets, quanta, tiny, discrete bits of energy that can knock electrons loose. This idea will birth quantum theory, though at the time, you think it's just a tool to solve a puzzle. And through it all, you remain quietly at your desk, filing patents, drinking tea, and walking the streets of Bern with your thoughts. You're not seeking fame. You're seeking truth, not as a monument, but as a melody, something that makes sense when the world is still, when the night is soft, and the stars whisper in their long, slow light. Outside your office window, the Aura River moves slowly around the city, its curve gentle and constant, much like the curve of time you're beginning to understand. You begin to imagine clocks moving in orbit, satellites circling the Earth, and how their time will drift from ours. This won't matter for decades, but one day, someone will build a global positioning system, and it will need your equations to find the way. You can't know that yet, but somehow, you sense it, that the future will walk quietly behind your ideas. And perhaps that is what makes your work so enduring. Not just the brilliance of the math, but the way it is rooted in things we all know. A train, a clock, a flash of light in the dark. These are the things you use to tell us that reality is stranger than we ever imagined. And more beautiful, too, as the sun sets in Bern. You pack your papers away. You smile to yourself, not because you've changed the world, but because you've understood something. Something quiet, something true. You walk home under a sky full of stars, each one shining with light that took centuries to arrive. And maybe, just maybe, you begin to wonder what it would feel like to ride alongside that light. But light, as you soon discover, is not just fast. It's full of questions, too. Where does it come from? What does it mean to be a particle and a wave at once? And how can one man chase the speed of light and find so much more along the way? Chapter 5, Time bends, light leans. The room around you fades like the end of a thought. And now you are floating beside Einstein, again, not in space, but in the quiet space between ideas. Time is no longer ticking in steady, metronomic rhythm. It slows, it stretches, it changes its shape. You drift with him through the notion that seemed impossible before he said it aloud. Time does not flow the same for everyone. And more curious still, light, that fastest of things, does not always travel in a straight line. You think of trains again, the ones from your childhood dreams. But this time, they move fast, faster than anything you've ever imagined. And inside one of them, a clock ticks. Tick, tick, tick. Only you, standing outside the train, see that those ticks come slower. Not broken, just quieter, just delayed, just different. This is time dilation, Einstein says gently, as if he were pointing to a soft curve in the sky. When you move fast, time stretches like pulled taffy. To you, everything feels normal. But to someone watching from the outside, you age slower. Your seconds take longer to arrive. It's not a trick. It's not an illusion. It's woven into the nature of space and time. And you are now floating inside that fabric. He shows you space not as a cold void, but as something soft, like a bedsheet. Imagine, he whispers, that space is a giant sheet stretched out wide. When nothing rests on it, it's flat, still, balanced. But place a heavy object on it, a star, a planet, your own body, and the fabric dips, bends, curves. And now, place light on that sheet. Watch how it tries to travel straight, but instead leans, gently following the curve left behind by gravity. This is how light bends, not by force, but by invitation, by the shape of space itself being curved by mass. You don't fall into gravity. You slide along its curves, just like light does. You begin to feel it in your bones. The deeper the gravity, the slower the time. The closer you are to something heavy, a planet, a black hole, the more your moments stretch. And then, Einstein invites you to an eclipse. Not a real one, but a memory of one. In 1919, during a rare celestial alignment, he had made a bold prediction. That starlight from behind the sun would bend, just enough to be seen from Earth, around the edge of the sun's disk. And it did. It did. You picture it now? The way the sky proved him right. Not with thunder or applause, but with quiet, perfect alignment. And suddenly, he was no longer just a man with thoughts. He was a man whose thoughts could touch the fabric of the cosmos. You notice now, the world is not made of isolated things. It is made of relationships, between time and motion, between space and gravity, between the observer and the observed. And this changes how you see everything, even your breath. You take one now, slow and deep, and you imagine it stretching time ever so slightly. A tiny dilation, a personal gravity, because you too have mass. You too shape space. You too bend light in some infinitesimal way. Einstein smiles, not in triumph, but in peace. He never wanted to control the universe, only to understand its rhythm. And now, in this chapter of your dreamlike journey, you sense what he sensed. That time is not a line, but a landscape. Not a ticking drumbeat, but a shape that responds to where you are, how fast you go, and what pulls on you. So when you lie still, as you do now, and you feel the earth's soft pull, you are part of that bending. You are floating in gentle curves. And in your stillness, light leans around you. Time flows through you. And nothing is ever quite as rigid as it once seemed. Tomorrow, he says quietly, we will go deeper still. We will visit the thing at the center of motion, of gravity, of mystery, a place where time may stop altogether. Chapter 6. The Universe Answers Back. Einstein's ideas are no longer only his. The world listens, then echoes with awe. Telescopes confirm the bending of starlight, and Einstein becomes not just a scientist, but a symbol of deep thought. It's 1919, and you stand beneath a sky holding its breath. Above, the moon slowly crosses the sun, casting a cool shadow over the earth. This is no ordinary eclipse. It is a cosmic experiment, and in this moment, the universe has a chance to answer back. Years ago, Einstein had written something that bent the minds of those who read it. He said space is not empty, that gravity is not just a pull, but a curve in the fabric of space itself, a soft dip in the invisible landscape of reality. He said that even light, traveling as fast as anything can, would follow the contours of that curve. Starlight, bent by the sun's invisible hands. Most people didn't know what to make of it. The math was dense. The idea, even denser. What do you mean, space can bend? What do you mean, time can stretch? But now, here comes the test. Across the globe, 2 expeditions set out. One to the island of Principe off the coast of Africa, the other to the jungles of Brazil. Their mission is simple, yet immense. Photograph the stars near the sun during the eclipse. Compare their positions with where they should be. If the starlight appears shifted, bent by the sun's gravity, Einstein is right. And so, in the cool hush of totality, as birds go silent and the air chills. Cameras click. Glass plates capture ancient light that traveled from distant stars, only to skim past the sun and whisper down to Earth. The analysis takes months. The data, delicate, but when the results are published, the world tilts. Einstein's prediction is confirmed. Light bends. Gravity curves space. The old world of Newton holds strong for apples and cannonballs. But the cosmos dances to Einstein's tune. You sit with that for a moment. Not just the discovery, but the fact that the universe listened and answered. An idea once scribbled quietly in a notebook, now echoed by starlight. A theory once doubted, now folded into the very structure of reality. And the world takes notice. Newspapers call him a genius. Some call him a prophet of space and time. His wild hair, deep eyes, and quiet demeanor become symbols of a new kind of mind. A thinker who touched the invisible and returned with truth. But fame, like gravity, bends things. And while the headlines roar, Einstein remains strangely still. He never chased the spotlight. He only chased understanding. You imagine him in his Berlin apartment, surrounded by books and silence, pausing at the window as the sun sets behind the rooftops. The city may buzz with his name, but he still thinks of light, of clocks, of space-time unfolding. He writes letters, teaches students, tinkers with equations. The core of his world remains inward, not fame, but thought. Yet, his influence now spreads like ripples in a pond. Young minds are stirred. Science begins to dream again. People look at the sky differently, not just with wonder, but with deeper questions. What else bends? What else can change? And quietly, as the years pass, Einstein turns his thoughts to something deeper still. Gravity is only part of the puzzle. He begins to wonder, can all the forces of nature be woven together? Is there a single law behind the many forms of the universe? You feel the shift again, not just in his thinking, but in the tone of it, as if he's listening to something faint, a whisper behind the equations. The world has confirmed his theory, but he is not content. He never truly is. Because for Einstein, the point is not to be right, but to understand. And as he peers into the elegant curves of space-time, he begins to sense what may lie beyond even that. A deeper symmetry, a hidden unity. But unity is not simple. The forces resist. The math grows stubborn. Still, he keeps going. Because that's what he's always done. Follow light. Follow questions. Follow wonder. And so, as this chapter closes, you too rest in the quiet echo of that eclipse. A universe that answered back. A mind that dared to ask, yet far from finished. That mind now turns to the next mystery. Is it possible that everything, light, gravity, atoms, time, is part of one single fabric? And if so, how do you begin to stitch it together? Chapter 7, Letters of Light and Shadows. Though famous, Einstein remains deeply human, writing letters, sharing worries, dreaming still. You walk beside him through both celebration and sorrow, as he begins to worry about the power of what he's helped uncover. You find yourself walking beside him now, not in a lecture hall or a laboratory, but in quiet rooms filled with books, a worn violin resting on a chair, and stacks of letters, hundreds of them, folded with care, heavy with thought. His hair is wilder now, his eyes gentler. Fame has made his name glow in every corner of the world, yet he walks as if still searching for something. just beyond the horizon of understanding. You notice the way he carries time, not as a clock ticking on the wall, but as a feeling deep inside his bones. He writes, not to the future, but into it, each letter a window through which his mind and heart peer out. Some letters are to friends, full of quiet jokes and soft regrets. Others are to strangers, people writing from across the world. Students, dreamers, mothers, skeptics. He reads them all, but some letters carry a different weight. You see one now, unfolded on his desk. The words are carefully chosen, the sentences restrained, but the meaning ripples beneath them. A letter to President Roosevelt. Einstein is older, but his signature still changes the course of nations. He has just warned the world about the possibility of a terrible power, not a theoretical equation, but a weapon drawn from the energy of atoms. His mind, the one that once followed photons, to understand the nature of time, now trembles with the knowledge that those same truths could split the world in two. He had not built the bomb. He had not wanted it. But his letter lit a path others would follow. You feel the conflict in him, a deep ache between discovery and destruction, to see light as knowledge, and now as fire. Still, he does not stop writing. Letters to world leaders, letters to colleagues, letters to children who ask, what is gravity? Or is God real? He answers them not with certainty, but with care. To a little girl afraid of math, he writes that even he sometimes struggles. To a mother who has lost her son in war, he writes of the unity of matter, how nothing is truly lost. He writes not just equations, but the quiet language of comfort. You hear the scratch of his pen, the paper breathing under his hand. You see him pause, look out the window, and return to the page. A man balancing the universe and the soul, and in these shadows, you sense his worry deepen. Nations begin racing towards something dark. Einstein sees it coming, a future filled with glowing cities and glowing craters. He speaks out, not with rage, but with reason, not with noise, but with persistence. He calls for peace, for restraint, for dialogue, and yet he knows that once light escapes a black hole, there's no way to pull it back in. Still, he writes, you walk with him now along the Princeton campus. The air is cooler, the trees still. He moves more slowly, but with the same distant focus, as though he's listening to music, only he can hear. A reporter asks him for a quote. He says, the important thing is not to stop questioning. And yet, the questions are heavier now. Is knowledge always good? Can science exist without morality? Have we built something we no longer understand? He does not claim to have the answers, but he keeps asking. You sit beside him in the quiet of his study. He plays his violin softly. Bach, perhaps, and the notes seem to shimmer in the lamplight. He tells you, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, but imagination embraces the entire world. You realize this is the thread that runs through him, from the young boy in Munich, who marveled at a compass, to the man warning presidents with a shaking pen, a belief that the mind can stretch across the stars, but must also return to the human heart. He does not sleep easily now, but he still dreams of unity, of a grand theory that brings all forces together. Gravity, light, motion, magnetism. He spends his final years chasing this dream, writing it in notebooks, scribbling on napkins, even as his body begins to rest. He never finishes it, but maybe that's the point. Not all light becomes laser. Not all thought becomes formula. Some of it becomes poetry, unresolved, open, an invitation. You look at the final letter on his desk. It's not signed yet. It's addressed to a philosopher. It begins with, "What is the true nature of reality?" He never answers the question, but maybe he didn't need to. Maybe asking it, again and again, with wonder and humility, was his truest gift. You feel the room grow quieter now. The violin rests. The page is still, but the light of the mind, his mind, lingers like a distant star, its message still traveling, soft and slow. And just as sleep begins to fold gently over your thoughts, you hear the first echoes of the next chapter beginning to form. As time and light bend, so does history. In the next chapter, we'll step into the years of global change, of cold wars and warm debates, and explore how Einstein's legacy ripples across time, even long after his voice grows quiet. Chapter 8. The Mind That Spoke of Peace. In a world torn by war, Einstein speaks of peace. He believes science must serve kindness, and his voice, soft but steady, carries beyond equations, into human hearts. The war drums are distant, but you feel their echo. The world is changing, fast and unkind, and the quiet mind that once watched light now watches the darkness creeping in. You are older now, wiser, and yet the innocence of wonder remains in you. You remember what it felt like to chase thoughts through stars, to ask questions of space and time. But now, your questions feel heavier. What is the purpose of knowledge if it brings harm? What is the weight of a mind that can unravel atoms? Einstein stands before this question, not as a physicist, but as a human being. He has already bent time, already shown that space curves around gravity like a soft sheet. He has explained the photoelectric effect and revealed that light dances between wave and particle. His name is known across the world now, synonymous with brilliance. But fame is not comfort. Truth is not peace. In the 1930s, the skies darken again. Clouds rise over Europe. Einstein, Jewish and outspoken, leaves Germany as it falls under the shadow of fascism. He finds refuge in America, but his heart aches for the world he knew, for the places and people no longer safe, for a silence that science cannot solve. And yet, the work continues. Others take his equations further, split the atom, unleash its terrible power. In 1939, Einstein signs a letter, just one page, warning President Roosevelt that Germany might build an atomic bomb. It is a whisper that sets great wheels in motion. The Manhattan Project begins. And though Einstein is not involved in the bomb's creation, his theory, his name, his silence, or his voice feels present in it all. You feel the sorrow settle on him, like dusk on a summer field. Einstein regrets that letter. He wonders if knowledge alone can save us, or if wisdom must walk beside it. So he turns away from the laboratories. He turns instead toward peace. You walk with him now through Princeton, where he lives in a small house, wears old sweaters, rides his bicycle with hair like a silver cloud. He does not chase accolades. He does not seek power. He speaks, softly, steadily, about a world without war. He warns of nationalism, of blind obedience, of science without morality. He joins peace organizations. He speaks against segregation in America. He supports civil rights, stands beside voices that others try to silence. He believes that a united humanity must be our next great equation. And though the bombs fall elsewhere, in cities reduced to ash, Einstein's voice carries across the dust. He speaks of one world, one species, one shared future. Not everyone listens, but some do. And you, listening now, feel something stir, because there is something profound in a mind that holds both the mysteries of the universe and the yearning for a gentle world. Einstein's legacy, you realize, is not just in E equals mc squared. It is in the courage to think differently, to stand apart from the crowd, and still speak truth. The mind that bent time also dreamed of peace, not just peace in theory, but peace in practice, in schools, in laws, in the soft way one human treats another. And maybe that's the greatest thought of all. You rest here, beneath the echo of his hope. You lie down in the warm shadow of ideas that stretch far beyond chalkboards and formulas. Outside, the world is still noisy, but in this moment, you feel the hush that follows understanding. You feel the power of a mind that didn't just seek truth, but goodness. And now, as your thoughts begin to drift again, to time and gravity and light, you start to wonder, what happens when letters become light and shadows speak the language of space? What secrets still wait, tucked between the curves of the cosmos? Chapter 9, A Quiet Life, a Lasting Light. Einstein grows older, but his curiosity never fades. You find him by the river, walking, thinking, humming quietly. Though the world rushes forward, he stays rooted in thought and wonder. There is a stillness that comes with age, a different kind of motion, not the rush of trains or the ticking of clocks, but the soft turning of thought within a quiet mind. You find Albert Einstein in that stillness. Older now, slower in step, his wild hair whiter than before, his eyes gentler, rimmed with time. He walks often by the river near his home in Princeton, hands tucked behind his back, coat loose around him like the breeze. He hums sometimes, low drifting tunes, like ideas trying to form words. Though the newspapers no longer shout his name as they once did, his mind is far from dim. It burns, steady and warm, like the sun behind evening clouds. Not seeking fame, not chasing recognition, just following questions wherever they lead. In these years, he thinks often about unity, not just in science, but in life. In the war-torn century he lived through, he sees a fractured world, and he wonders if it might, somehow, fit together. In physics, he dreams of a single theory that could unite all the forces of nature: gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and the weak. He calls it a unified field theory. But to him, it's more than equations. It's a hope, a quiet reaching for something whole. He fills pages with symbols, lines curling like vines on paper. Sometimes they lead nowhere, but he follows them anyway, patient, faithful to the process. You sit with him now as he writes. There's no rush, only the scratch of a pencil, the ticking of a clock he long ago stopped trusting. His mind roams to the cosmos, to the ripples in space he once imagined, to the bending of starlight during eclipses, to the notion that gravity isn't a force at all, just the way mass tells space how to curve. He smiles, faintly, remembering how the world once doubted him, then proved him right, not out of pride, but out of peace. Because truth, to him, is not something to win. It's something to hold gently. Sometimes children recognize him in town. They run up shyly, Ask him if he really is the guy with the E equals something. He laughs softly. Yes, he says, and I still haven't figured everything out. He speaks often of peace now, of human rights, of disarmament. He regrets the letter he once wrote. That helped bring about the atomic bomb. A letter sent in fear, not ambition. He could not have known how powerful his ideas would become when weaponized. And so he speaks not just as a scientist now, but as a human being, one who knows that knowledge without compassion is like light without warmth. In his small house, books fill every corner. A violin rests by the window. He still plays sometimes, music, his first language of wonder. He once said, "Look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better." Now, more than ever, he walks among trees and listens to birds instead of broadcasts. The more he learns, the simpler things feel. Not simpler to explain, but simpler in what truly matters. You watch as he sits quietly by the fire. He reads letters from strangers, students, thinkers, dreamers, people who feel less alone, because he dared to question time and space. In return, he writes back, not with long lectures, but with gentle advice. Never lose a holy curiosity. He reminds them, and still at night, he looks up. The same stars that guided his questions as a boy now glow through the branches. He wonders, as he always has, what lies beyond them, what force holds the universe together, what mysteries still wait in the dark. He never stops wondering. He never stops being curious. And maybe that's why his light lasts. Not because he solved everything, but because he never stopped looking. Because even now, in this quiet chapter of life, he shows you that the greatest minds are often the ones most willing to admit what they still do not know. And so you leave him there, walking the path by the river, alone but never lonely, lost in thought and stars and silence. But as he turns a corner, his steps pause. A memory rises, not of formulas, but of childhood, of a boy who once held a compass and felt the world shift inside him. And just like that, you begin to wonder, what planted that question in the first place? What made young Albert see beyond the needle and imagine the invisible? What makes any of us begin? And that quiet question drifts with you now, gently guiding you toward the next thought, toward the beginning of a mind awakened by something unseen. Chapter 10. You are made of wonder too. As the story closes, it circles back to you. The same light Einstein followed lives in your questions. Your mind, too, bends space with thought, and you drift into sleep, cradled by curiosity. It begins quietly, the realization that all this time, this journey through stars and thought, through clocks and dreams, was not just about Albert Einstein. It was about you. You, lying there with eyes closed, letting each word settle like soft stardust. You, whose heartbeat is timed by invisible rhythms, whose breath is a pulse of space and life. Because in the stillness of sleep, you are closer to the universe than you know. Einstein saw it, not just in equations, but in the beauty of asking why. Why does time bend? Why does light move the way it does? Why are we here at all? And each question he asked, you've asked too, maybe in different ways. Lying under stars, staring out windows, or listening, now, in the gentle hush of night. You are not a bystander to science. You are part of its poetry. Your body, made of the same elements stars once shed. Your neurons, firing like constellations in your skull. Your thoughts, bending time inside your own memory. You imagine the past. You dream of the future. And that's time travel too. Einstein knew that time wasn't a ticking clock. It was movement, a relationship between what moves and who watches it. And tonight, you're both the traveler and the observer, watching your own mind float freely between facts and wonder. You carry galaxies in your cells, not just metaphorically, but truly. The calcium in your bones was born in dying stars. The oxygen in your lungs, a gift from ancient light. The iron in your blood, forged in stellar fires billions of years ago. And still, here you are, resting, held by gravity, wrapped in thought, connected to Einstein not just through knowledge, but through awe. He never wanted to be seen as superhuman. He was shy, sometimes forgetful, often lost in thought, not because he was escaping life, but because he was swimming deeper into it. And that's what you've done tonight. You've swum through space and time, gently, without needing to grasp everything, just letting it float by, letting it comfort you. Einstein once said, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and all science." You are made for mystery, not just to solve it, but to feel it, to live inside it, to wonder as you fall asleep. Think of time not as a line, but as a breath, in and out. Think of light not as speed, but as touch, from one corner of the universe to another. And think of Einstein not as a man with answers, but as a man who stayed soft enough to keep asking questions. So what will you ask tomorrow? What will your dreaming mind discover tonight? Maybe something about black holes, or about how your heartbeat slows when you're loved, or why the moon always pulls at the sea. There's time. There's always time to wonder. The story doesn't really end, not when it lives in you, because your brain, your being, carries the same hunger, the same spark of curiosity. You are made of wonder too. And as you drift now, as your breathing slows, your body warm and quiet, you carry that wonder gently into your dreams. No rush, no answers needed. Only this, the soft gravity of thought, pulling you inward, toward the next question, the next chapter, the next story, maybe one about how stars are born again.